All right. So, hello everybody again. So it's Sally with Slice of Tuscany, and let's see. So most of you I see on here are Slice of Tuscany travelers. Either we're supposed to go this year, or you've gone with me in the past, or you are planning to go in the future. A lot of family and friends too. This is fun. So today we're talking with Ricardo. He is with Argiano Winery, which is just outside of Montalcino. And we're going to talk a little bit about the area. We're going to taste the wines with him, and then we'll hang out and have a social with whoever wants to stay. But I'm going to start off with a little presentation first. So I'm going to share my screen. And if you have questions as we go along, you can leave them in the chat. Emily, your question is, which wine is first? We're going to focus on Brunello. So we're going to do Argiano and the Brunello for this whole first part with Ricardo, and then we'll go to the other wines a little bit later. But today we're going to focus on Brunello mostly. So leave questions in the chat at the end. We'll open things up, and if you have questions for Ricardo, you can ask him. Here we go. So I'm going to try to share my screen. All right, so everybody take a deep breath in. Look at that beautiful scenery. We wish we were all there right now. But today, so to give kind of a recap and focus in on what we're talking about today. So Tuscany is one of 20 regions in Italy, so like a state, basically. Its capital is Florence, and it's actually one of the largest ones. It's the largest in central and kind of southern Italy. And we mentioned last time, so we have a pretty long coastline you don't always hear about in Tuscany. It's not necessarily the Sardinian or the Pugliese coast that you think about, but beautiful Elba Island, really strong influences from the sea as we come in, and we have the Apennine Mountains to the north and to the east. And Tuscany overall is about 85–90% hills and mountains. So all of these things, the hills, the mountains, the sea breezes, make for a lot of different microclimates and different growing areas, have a lot of different influence on the wines that we find here. So last time we talked about Chianti Classico, which basically covers the distance between Florence and Siena. Today, just south of that, we're going to focus on Montalcino. And Montalcino is on the western side of this beautiful Val d'Orcia, which looks like this. So Chianti had kind of steeper hills and mountains, and in the Val d'Orcia, the space between Montalcino and Montepulciano, we have more of these open rolling hills. But this area of Montalcino, which Ricardo is really going to focus in on, is just about a 9 square mile area. And there's a town there, just a medieval fortress town that kind of sits in the middle of that. But it's about it's about an hour from Siena, 2 hours from Florence, an hour from the seaside. So really beautiful place where everyone needs to get to at some point if you haven't already been. So I just want to talk briefly about the winemaking history, because you may think that, you know, Brunello has this really long history, but in truth, it doesn't. It's really the 1800s where we start to see Brunello. But we do have winemaking history in Tuscany. So the Etruscans were the native people, and they were making wines. They had really kind of innovative at the time techniques for making wines. They grew these vines and would train them high up into trees and tie the ends of the vines in trees to maximize sunshine and to help ripen the grapes. And they would actually trade their wines internationally. So Spain, France, those lands, they were already trading their wines in the 8th and 6th centuries BC. Also in that time, the Greeks were coming over and they were settling in Italy, a lot in southern Italy, Magna Graecia, Greater Greece is what we call it. And they actually called Italy Enotria, Enotria, which means the land of vines. So from that time, really, we have between the Etruscans and the Middle Ages, we have the Roman Empire. I'm skipping over that today. not a lot. I mean, we have trade and growth of winemaking techniques, but Montalcino specifically at that time really wasn't even around. Montalcino doesn't come around until the Middle Ages, and it is actually a medieval town with the fort that you can see there, that still wasn't necessarily a winemaking area. There was winemaking, especially by the monks. You can see the Abbey of Sant'Antimo, built in the 12th century. The monks made wines, but wines tended to be a little sweeter. They used the Moscato, the Moscadello. They made a sweeter wine in that area, which very few producers actually still make, but not the Brunello still that we know today. The position of Montalcino is very important. It was on the Pilgrim Road between France and Rome, the Holy Land. So people would come through and stop in Montalcino, but it wasn't important really economically at the time. Montepulciano, which is on the other side of the valley, that on the other hand has a really, its winemaking was known even in Roman times. So in terms of history of winemaking, Montepulciano is arguably more important in that sense. So Brunello di Montalcino, as we do know it today, so Argiano does have a deep history, Ricardo will tell you about, starting from the 1580s, but it's still really not until the 1880s that we see the term Brunello come up, and we see a focus on Sangiovese grapes. Brunello means little dark one in Italian. And the wines here do have to be 100% Sangiovese by law. Chianti Classico, if you remember, was 80% had to be Sangiovese. Vino Nobile di Montepulciano, which we'll get to later, that has to be 70% minimum Sangiovese. And Ricardo will kind of tell you why that is, but it very much has to do with the soils and microclimate in and around Montalcino. So you can see the aging requirements. We'll talk more about that. But really the most important thing that I want to share with you today, because Ricardo's presentation is great, is that you all need to go here. If you haven't already, of course, Slice can help you plan an amazing vacation. But the villas, all the different agriturismos, places you can go do wine tastings, visit nearby a farm where they make pecorino cheese and things like that. I can set it all up for you. So you know how to contact me. I'm really going to turn it over to Ricardo now and let him do his thing. His presentation is wonderful. So without further ado, take it away, Ricardo.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sally, and good evening. Well, actually, I think good afternoon, everybody. Here is 10 p.m. after dinner. So it's kind of a different tasting. We're streaming from Montalcino, and today we are going to check many details, many different information, but the most important thing is to enjoy the results of all the effort. So first of all, have your glass filled with some wine, and let's make a toast. So salute everybody. And I like to start with the wine, just because we have to enjoy the kind of virtual tour. We have no chance to visit Montalcino in Tuscany physically. So I think that the best connection is just a glass of wine. And the Brunello 15 that I have in here, Corvin, is a kind of a warm vintage. So usually in the winter time, we could have some snow, but not too many. We are not often below the 0 degrees centigrade, but in the summertime, we can reach out about 30 to 35 degrees Celsius. This means that in warm vintages, we usually have higher average temperatures and also less rains, so less water that stays in the soil. It is important to talk about this because to make wine, there are 3 major elements. So the first one is the terroir. So is the group of the soil, altitude aspects, sunlight hours, and then rain. So all these kind of details. Plus, you have the winery style. So it's the signature. So it's the style that every winery has in the area. And Sally was saying about 210 producers are in the area. So imagine how many different interpretations you have. And then the last important detail for wine is the vintage. Every vintage is different. 2015 was warm but beautiful. We have a great maturation for the grapes, so it was kind of easy to express the maximum potential for wine. And then we could have like more colder vintages or vintages with more rain. So every year is different. All the Brunellos, all the wines across the vintages are brothers, but they are all different. So this is another beautiful thing. We don't make Coca-Cola, we make wine. So do not expect the same quality every time you taste it. So we talk about Brunello di Montalcino, 100% Sangiovese, and this is all cultivated in our lands. Later I'm going to show you a presentation. And it's a wine that has to be at least 5 years old from the vintage time. It means that the first day I can taste the Brunello 15 was the 1st of January 2020. Has to stay for about 2 years in the barrel. Of course, it takes about 1 year to have the wine ready to start the aging in the wood, and then has to spend a long time in the bottle. Is when it gets the harmony, is when it gets the balance. So it's a wine that it starts is youth when it's 5 years old. We don't talk about a wine ready to drink after 1 or 2 years, but we talk about a wine that's rested in the barrel and in the bottle for a long time. So start to expect, if you smell not just the red fruits like red cherry or red plum, but also expect something like more forest or mushroom or forest floor and leather sensations. So it's a combination of 3 major elements. The first ones are the fruits, the flowers, the wet stones. The second ones are coming from the aging. So you have a little bit of vanilla, you have a little bit of toast and coffee, and then you move to the tertiary aromas where you have, to me, the most beautiful kind of aromas with the mushrooms and forest floor. So they make the wine complete, round, and extremely elegant. So this is the Brunello. Elegance, tradition, but at the same time, you need drinkability. On the palate, you feel that it's dry. We don't have sugar. We want to ferment everything here. And then we have quite a good amount of tannins because it's a gastronomic wine. So when you have a juicy and fatty foods, you are able to wash away and clean up your mouth with a sip of Brunello. Good acidity because it's essential to age the wine. So you can age a wine like this for 20 or even 30 years. It depends by the vintage again. But then when you swallow it, it's long. So you remain with that taste in your mouth for many seconds. And this is how to make a wine that is balanced and elegant at the same time. So I think that in this, just to refresh my mind, but then I would like to start to show you a presentation. So I hope it's not going to be boring, but it's to give you very few information about ourselves. So we can start, and if you have questions, just type them or write them down, and we will be able to see everything. Okay, so here we are. So Argiano is a winery that exists since the 1580, quite a good long time. Of course, we're not making Brunello. At that time, it was more a Moscadello, so more sweet white wine, as Sally was saying at the beginning. But then from the 19th century, we start to produce Sangiovese. Of course, everything is coming from the millions of years ago, the geology. Later, we will see exactly what I'm talking about. So the history of Montalcino in Italy. But here now we start to see where we are located. We are not far from the coast, so we have a good influence. We have the breeze that comes from the Tyrrhenic Sea and blows into Montalcino, which is one big hill in a valley. And as you can see, is about 9 square miles. So it's one single village. Only 5,000 people live there. So we are not many, we're not too crowded, but it is extremely natural. And, you know, if you imagine the Tuscan postcard, this is where we are. And as you can see, also there are other producers. There are about 210 producers right now. We are in the southwest. You start to see where Argiano is. It's one single parcel. We don't have vineyards spread around. We are only there. So the red are the vineyards and the green is the olive grove. Plus we have a lot of forests that is essential. We are all in organic farming and we believe that the biodiversity is extremely important to maintain a balance into the vineyards. And then the villa, which is our headquarters, is right there, is right in the middle. So consider that from the north to the south of the estate, it takes maybe 10 minutes walking. So it's not a big area. It's quite a small estate, Argiano, even if it's a little bit bigger than others. So it's considered medium big winery. We don't have only Sangiovese. With the other colors, you see that we also have Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Petit Verdot. So these are not the grapes that are indigenous from Montalcino, but they arrived thanks to the winemaker that has been working with us for about 15 years. It was Giacomo Takis. It was the father of the super Tuscans like the Sassicaia or Tignanello or Solaia. And he came to Argiano and he created as the first super Tuscan of the area. I will show you later the bottle. We don't taste it today, hopefully next time. But we are in the land of Sangiovese and the land of Brunellos. So next map is about the soil characteristics. Here, every color represents a different kind of soil. So the red is the Mar, and later we will see from where it comes from. Is about 30 million years old soil. So a lot of clay with a lot of limestone. So it creates this soil that can retain the water and also is not too hot as a soil, but is able to force the vines to explore deeper and deeper in the soil. It's considered poor. And vines need just a little bit of nutrition and water. They don't need too much. So if you want to make a fruit that has a good quality. That's why the Mar or the Galesto, which is a schist that is not in these particular vineyards, are important for this kind of soils. And then we have other soils, more alluvial. So they're more recent, about 3-4 million years old. And they have more sand and more round stones. We have made a research about the different micro areas that we have. So these are the best areas that they can produce a Sangiovese that has specific characteristics. And we use it to balance every vintage. We use it to make the Brunello that represent our style, but in the highest expression. We also have a single vineyard Brunello that only comes from that little parcel, is about 4 hectares. So it's a little vineyard where we produce about 3,400 bottles of the Vigna del Suolo Brunello. This is something particular, very rare, but we are proud of it because it's just the best expression of our lands. Then to continue, as I was saying, we are almost 500 years old. We have the villa that comes from the Renaissance. It is our headquarters. So we have the offices, the cellars, and is a quite romantic place. Here we are in the Val d'Orcia, so it's a UNESCO area. It's considered one of the places where the medieval age is still present there. You don't see many factories around, but it's just nature and old villas, some castles around. So I invite you to come and visit us next year, hopefully when things will get better, because it's something that we need. we need to start traveling again, and we have to share something nice. Okay, so we go ahead. And this is the overview of the estate, the villa from the Renaissance, and around here in the background we have the old castles that were used to control the borders of the Republic of Siena in case of invasions. Then it has been not used anymore, and the family, the landlords, they created the villa, which is massive, so 365 windows. It's a beautiful building that has been one of the most important villas in the areas for centuries, and everything is around there. All the vineyards, all the olive grove. I will go quite fast on the presentation because, again, it's about drinking and enjoying on Saturday night. Sorry, Saturday afternoon, not to have a lesson, but I will still try to give you our philosophy, which is about the identity. So we make Sangiovese mostly. For the Brunello, it's about our lands, our soils, our terroir. It's about the tradition. We use bigger barrels like we were doing in the 19th century. We try to be respectful for the vineyards, to not use pesticide or fertilizers, because everything is in the soil. We just have to make it available with the biodiversity, with the microorganisms, with the earthworms, so with different kind of plants. So to maintain the tradition, but also the balance. So I want a wine that can age for 20, 30 years, but I also want to enjoy now. So the first impression is to smell it and to understand if it's enjoyable or not. If it's not, probably we have some problem, but usually it is. So it's about Sangiovese that gives you the traditional characteristics with our signature on it. The estate comes from the Etruscan era, when we had the temple dedicated to the Romanic god Janus, that was represented with two faces, one looking at the past and one looking at the future. And then with they were speaking Latin, and then after that they have transitioned to the Vulgar and then to the Italian, and then from Argiani the name became Argiano. So it took centuries to reach that point. And then Argiano has always been owned by noble families that were kind of controlling that specific part of the Valdorcia. And in the last century, Argiano was one of the 25 founders of the consortium of Brunello. So at that time, there were only about 22 wine producers. The first one was Biondi Santi, the one who created the Brunello di Montalcino, and then he shared the way of making the Brunello with the whole territory. And then we were about 22 producers only. Nowadays, there are about 210. So Montalcino really exploded in terms of brand, in terms of image, but simply because Montalcino is unique. So it's one hill in the valley with this soil that is just perfect for the Sangiovese, and is where is more difficult to make a bad wine than making a good wine. And that's why we all share with all the other producers the different characteristics. It's one big family. This is what we try to do. And then in the last century, we started to make the first super Toscan of Montalcino. So based on Cabernet, Merlot, Sangiovese, and Petit Verdot. And then we start to export the wine all around. In the last 10 years, when the new property arrived, they arrived from Brazil. And then they bought the winery. Everybody was kind of worried because nobody knew what were going to happen. But then the new owners arrived and said, okay, we love wine. We don't know anything about how to make wine. So you keep making the wine in the traditional way, in the right way, and we will enjoy that. So fortunately, we have a team They are all coming from Siena, from Montalcino. So let's say that we have the experience from professional players. So from the winemaker, the CEO, the agronomist, the cellar master, myself, I'm taking care of the cells all around the world. But then we are from this area. We have quite a good experience on different levels, but we make the wine. And the owners, they enjoy their country house in Montalcino. Simple as that. And then we became organic. We were the first to become the plastic-free winery, so we tried to not use any plastic during the processes, and we start to understand the maps of the area, so to see exactly what kind of soils we have. And this is the origins. 100 million years ago, Mount Amiata was a volcano, very active, earthquakes and different mix of soils, and then we have the ocean in almost all around Italy. And with the ocean, we have tropical weather, a lot of life. So we start to accumulate the limestone, which is the most important soil that we have. Then with the glacial ages, the water that went away, and what was left was this soil, clay and limestone, called marna. And then after that, about 30 million years ago, we start to have a lot of rain. So the erosion of the highest part of the hill and the creation of the rivers and creeks, and everything was brought on the valleys. So the alluvial soils, we have more sandy soils and silty soils and brown stones. So Montalcino in general is a very mixed terroir, where you can find many different kinds of soils. You can find the fossils, big shells like this, or you can find even older soils that are about 100 million years ago. And the soils are the most important factor when you decide to make wine, together with the climate, of course. So we know where we are, and exactly we are in the southwest, as you can see that. Those are the 4 areas of Montalcino, and is where on the southeast part, you have more influence from the volcano, Mount Amiata. Of course, it's off since about 200,000 years. But it influenced with soils with a lot of organic substances, very fertile and very warm area. And then we have the northeast side, which is the coldest, so we have a little bit more rain, and we have lower temperatures, but higher altitudes. It means that the wines usually are a little bit more tight at the beginning. They are very elegant. They don't have too big structure. And then we have a northwest. We have a lot of forest, not many wineries here, but then average altitudes and kind of mixed soils. And here also the style can be very, very different. In the southwest, where we are located, we have a mix of many different soils, from the alluvial soils, so the most recent ones, to the older soils, and then rivers. So even here you can have so many different styles of wines. That's why we decided to make a research about the soils that we have. So once again, here you see the big hill of Montalcino, where you can produce Brunello. You cannot produce Brunello outside of this picture, outside of this hill. It's important also to understand that. Consider there are about 56 acres, where only 56,000 acres, where only 5,000 acres have vineyards for the Brunello. So they are all spread around. Once again, that's the estate on a plateau, about 300 meters above the sea level, and a lot of forest, which helps a lot the biodiversity again. Let's go fast to this. Different vineyards. Every color represents a different one. And why did we choose to plant the Cabernet on these soils or the Sangiovese on the others? Because of this, because every parcel is different. And for example, Cabernet needs soils that are lighter with more sand. And this was important to have the best quality for the fruits. But then the Sangiovese in the red part is where it can express the elegance and our philosophy, our points of view for the Brunello. So elegance and structure, but not too extremes in terms of drinkability. We want to maintain a good balance between the acidity, the tannins, and then the elegance and the length of the wine. Then we have, of course, the experimental microterroirs that we mostly use for, again, just for research and to understand our true potential. But of course, it needs many years. You need to have the wet vintage and the hot one and the dry one. So it takes 20, 30 years to start to have a picture of what we are doing. But everything is about the balance between the organic farming, biodiversity, and the synergy with the plants and with the soil and the climates. We want that, because if a vineyard is not balanced, it could happen that it's not going to be healthy. And we don't want that. By doing organic farming, it's important to trying to be balanced and healthy without too many influence from outside. So this state has this approach. If you don't mind, I will go quite fast on this, otherwise we'll become too technical. But if you have any question that you might, if you want to know why we have this kind of soil, or why we are doing a specific, using a specific technique, just ask us later on. So we'll try to answer everything. About the soils, this is a technical map of one vineyard. As you can see, many different colors that the geologists had to read and to understand the meaning of those. So this was the geologist after we dig a big hole to see the stratigraphy, how the roots were growing in the soil. It was important to understand the theory and the practice for this. And as you can see, those are all different kind of soils that you can find in a small place, in a small area. On the left, you have a very sandy soil. On the right, top right, we have the marl, so a lot of limestone, as you can see, looks like chalk. And then on the right bottom part, we have the volcanic soil that is very rich in iron. And then on the bottom left, you have a soil that has clay and alluvial rocks. As you can see, they're round. It means that they roll and roll and roll and they consume, and they became more round. And then they start to deposit at different altitudes. So everything is there. It's important now to understand how we can do the interpretation for those kind of soils. But again, by doing the organic farming and do not spoil the vines, we see in the bottom left picture that the roots can go deeper down to 5 meters. So they go there because they need to find the water and they need to find the nutritions, and they have to struggle a little bit. They have to grow by themselves. We cannot spoil them, and that's why we have wines that are complex, they can age, they give a different perception on the nose, on the palate. This is all part of that. It took us about 500 years to arrive there. About the vinification, is a regular red wine vinification. So we maintain the skins together with the pulp and with the juice. We do a spontaneous fermentation, and then we extend the maceration for about 2 to 3 weeks. So we have we extract the color from the skins, and we, let's say, shift to the juice. Then is how we acquire the color, the tannins, and the aromas. And then after that, we move into the big barrels that you can see on your left. While the small barrels are more for Cabernet and Merlot grapes, The big ones are for the Sangiovese. That is the traditional way. And then I will show you a few pictures of the underground cellar, which is underneath the villa. And it's just the best part of the estate. Of course, the vineyard is nice, but when you start to walk down the historical cellar, that nobody knows what happened there because it was owned by noble families. So we had a lot of tunnels to escape, but also to let people coming in those maybe boring winter nights. So I don't know what happened there, but if those walls could talk, they would say many interesting stories. Anyway, now it's used the cellar to age our wines, and also to have a store to store the historical vintages from the 1960s to the latest vintages. And of course, it's all private, so we don't have like groups of people who go there, because we have quite a good collection, and is not supposed to be accessible to everyone. So I will show you this. This used to be a water well, was about 15 meters deep, to collect the rainwater from the rooftop. And then, of course, you cannot keep too much water in an aging cellar. You can create pollution. So we decided to remove the water and build a stair inside. And there is where we have the oldest vintages for our bottles, as well as a collection of Brunellos from the other historical producers, from Biondisanti, Condorcia, Pugione, Baricci, Val di Cava, many of them. They are stored there as a tribute to Montalcino. So that is the view from the top. And of course, the pictures don't show exactly the same. You have to come and see with your own eyes. Otherwise, it doesn't give you the same emotions. Anyway, about the wines, we produce mostly 4 different wines. The first one is the Rosso di Montalcino, again 100% Sangiovese, but comes from the young vines and the light soil. So it's easy to drink. You open, you drink it, and you enjoy it. It's a Sangiovese that is young and very energetic, and you have to match it with some food. So it's the young brother of the Brunello. The Brunello is our main wine that is created with the oldest vineyards, with the selected grapes. So you do many selections, and also the soil is important, because you need a soil that is not too generous. You need a soil that is quite poor, so you are able to let the Sangiovese suffer a little bit and struggle and give the best results. And then we have the Vigna del Suolo. So this is the rarest wine, only 3,000 bottles produced of Brunello, but from a single vineyard. And it's very particular. Again, difficult to describe, but I like to describe the wines like people. The Rosso di Montalcino is a young boy, it's full of energies, jumping up and down and climbing trees and running. So is energetic, maybe not too focused, but it is how it has to be. And then we have the Brunello, which is an adult person that can tell you stories, and you can have a very good conversation. And then we have the Vigna del Suolo, that to me, I see the Vigna del Suolo as a beautiful, elegant woman, because it really gives me this impression. It's something that's, it's very fascinating, and you have to be respectful when you try to approach the bottle, because it's not easy to understand, but if you understand it exactly, it gives you very, very nice emotions. Again, very difficult to make a wine description on Zoom, but we try. So, and then we have, all the previous ones were made from Sangiovese. This is the first wine made as a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Sangiovese. This is easy to approach. You can find it easily in the US, because it's quite a big production for us. but still it stayed great. And this is just the barbecue wine. You open and you drink, and it has to be easy to understand, very velvety and round, with more blackberries and black fruits. And then we have the Solengo, as I was saying, the first super Tuscan. So this is like the big brother of the previous one, but with a structure, with the long aftertaste. It's much more elegant and concentrated. The Solengo means the old wild boar, because it was a wine that nobody was making in the area. And when we started, the other wineries say, oh, they're crazy at Argiano. Why do they want to make a wine that is not Sangiovese in the area? But we have been led by Giacomo Takis, that was the winemaker who created as I was saying, the Sassicaia and all the other super Tuscans. So in his mind, he say, okay, you make a very beautiful Brunello. You have the potential also for something totally different. And we jump on that idea. To start to make something totally different. And then that is all about Argiano. So I try to compress everything in very few minutes. And this is where we are distributed. The United States is the first market for us. Of course, it's always been important, and from the East Coast to the West Coast, we are there. Of course, we are in Canada, in Europe, even if it looks small, but it's a very important market. We are even in France, where it's much more difficult to see Italian wines. But the world of wine is beautiful because you share. And sometimes you speak with somebody in Japan and you talk about wine, or you talk about authentic recipes there and how to match the wines in very particular ways. So wine is a good hobby because it allows you to drink, to enjoy, to relax, and to also have a very nice moment with friends and people that you care. It's not just about drinking some alcohol, it's something else. We try to always give emotions. And this is the final goal for every producer, is trying to give the best sensation while you drink a glass of wine. And this is all about Argiano. Of course, the best way is to come and see with your own eyes and cheer personally. But the idea is quite simple. We try to do our best with what we have. We have our own soil since 500 years. We have vineyards that are old and they send the roots deeper in the soil. We have barrels that are there since 30 or 40 years. We have a team of people that are very passionate. And when you have that and this combination, you're able to do something nice. So it's a job, but it's a passion. And when you're able to combine those, I think is the best way for a wine. I don't know if you have any questions. If you want to go back on the wine, I have it and I will drink it again because I'm sure it's changed a little bit from the beginning. But any questions that you have, any curiosity, I would be happy to answer. And Sally, if you want to say something.
I always want to say something. It's a problem. If anyone does have questions, feel free to chat in the chat for now, or you can unmute yourself one at a time and we can try it that way. I just wanted to remind people too. So this is a 2015. This is the first year that we can drink this wine on the market because of the aging requirements. It's very drinkable. It's very good. But what's so interesting is that you could also have this bottle and keep it in your fridge for 5 to 10 years, and it's only going to develop and change and, hopefully improve also over that time. So it's a fun thing to maybe have, a few bottles that, in 2 years you open one, and then 5 or 6 years, if you can make them last that long. you can taste them over time and kind of see how they change. And it's really interesting. So that was all I was going to say. Does anyone have, go ahead, Ricardo. I was going to ask if anyone had like different things they were smelling or tasting in the wine that they wanted to point out.
Well, no, you started a very good discussion. It's about the aging potential, because as you were saying, you can keep this wine for many years. It's going to change and to develop. So even wine has life. It's going to grow and then be stable, and then at a certain point start to decay. And the wine with the years is going to lose the red fruits and the floral aromas, and then you start to feel more tertiary aromas until you will start to feel like truffle and porcini mushroom on the nose. It really depends on the vintage and the producer, but the Brunello was born for that. Because of the climate was not always good in here, the Biondi Santi wanted to have a wine that was able to age, so to remain and to develop in the barrel or in the bottle for a long time, and for years where wine and the yield was not enough. So he developed these techniques, and he selected the Sangiovese clone just for that. That's why this is a wine that you can literally forget in your cellar, and then after years you take it back and you open, and it's different, it's changing, it is developed. In case if you like aged wines, sometimes we open in 1977 or 79 or a little bit more, a little bit younger, and they are beautiful just because they are changed. So they tell you more stories in a more relaxed way. That is the Brunello.
So I have, we'll talk about more of like kind of the technical parts of that at some point. The fact that aging wine in barrels over time, like Sangiovese, it is required that you age it 2 years in oak in a barrel. And the traditional is not the small French oak barrique, but it's a larger tonneau. It is Slavonian oak that they age it in, and because the Sangiovese and the tannins and the structure of the wood and what that imparts, it helps smooth tannins, and it helps like build the structure of the wine so that it can age for a longer period of time. So not all wines are like that. There are many wines that are produced to not be aged. And in fact, you want to drink them in the next year or two. And that's really the goal with something like the Little Brother, the Rosso di Montalcino, or the Rosso, even though some of those you can age for, a year or a few years, but generally most wines are meant to be enjoyed earlier. Ricardo, there were 2 questions. One is about 2010 and a 2010 Reserva, what's the aging potential, how that year was in general. And then the second question is your wines, which one is maybe a favorite that you have available right now?
Okay. Well, to answer the first one about the 2010 is what happened is that to have a fantastic vintage, you need to have a balance between the sugar level, so you need to be balanced. On the other sides, you have the phenols, so the color, the tannins, maturation, and ripeness. When everything is combined, it means that all the factors are aligned, is when you have a perfect vintage. And this is what happened with the 2010. 2010 had a very strong concentration of everything, of the acids, of the sugars, of the aromas, good maturation of the tannins. So it was just balanced and concentrated. And this gives a long aging potential. Strong tannins, but well mature, and good level of sugar, and it means alcohol, and good level of acidity. So the aging potential for the 2010, for our case, for Argiano or Brunello Riserva, it means that I think is about from 20 to 40 years. We are never sure about the limits, because sometimes they can surprise us even if you have a smaller vintage. But for sure, right now is start to be ready, but if you are able to wait another 2, 3 to 5 years, it will be better. You will smile more, just because the wine is going to change.
So which one of your wines that you have, out in the market right now, what's a favorite of yours?
Right now, I think
is it a fancy lady?
I'm thinking about right now. I think if you can still find the Brunello 13, was a beautiful expression, was very classic, and now it start to be just ready to drink. So very good balance, not too strong, not too weak. Otherwise, right now the Solengo 2016, of course, is a wine that is totally different from the Brunello. It's bigger and stronger, but right now you enjoy very much. The 2015, I hope for everybody that is enjoyable. It is a beautiful wine, but it's still, it's still in the puberty. It's still developing. Didn't reach the highest potential yet.
Right. I think overall, it's overarchingly true that 2013 was a really great year. 2010 a good year. So if you can find some wines from those years, that's great. Overall, 14 was not a good year. Overall, you can find some good wines, and there are some good ones that were released, but correct me if I'm wrong, Ricardo, that 13 and 15 were better than 14, if you can find them.
Yes, that's true. But again, it depends on what wine you're drinking and when you want to drink it. Because, for example, the Brunello 14 now, that's the production was about half in the whole Montalcino compared to regular years, is you enjoy when it's young. Because it looks more like a Burgundy red wine from the Côte d'Or, so from the Côte de Nuit. It's more on the tertiary aromas, is much more relaxed, more feminine Brunello. While the 15 is still young, so it still needs time. Of course, it depends by the wine that you want to drink and you want to enjoy, and your personal taste. To keep, I will keep the 2015. To drink right now, I will drink the 2014.
Yeah, that makes sense. Does anyone else have any questions for Ricardo before we let him go to bed? And then we can talk more about Vino Nobile. But the goal, Ricardo, is that everybody that you see here, I get them to you in the next few years, and that we have a Slice of Tuscany. Lisa is there, man. That we have a party all together, if possible, at Argiano, because Matt and I were sitting here going, oh, should have gotten married there. So that would be really fun. Anybody else before we let him go? No, that was my dog yawning. Ricardo, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. This is an amazing wine, and I am going to get a few more bottles and see how they go over the next few years.
Thank you very much, Sally, and thank you very much, everybody. Grazie mille. It was nice. It's unusual to do something like this, seriously. And I'm just sorry that I cannot join you for the Nobile di Montepulciano and the Vinsanto. Next time.
Well, you can't. You can stay if you'd like.
Well, I don't have any Nobile right now with me. I have other wines, but not those. So next time I will prepare something.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you so much. Ci sentiamo dopo. Ti scrivo domani.
A dopo. Perfetto. Ciao a tutti. Bye. Ciao ciao.
So now that he's gone, no, just kidding. So real quick before I will open this up, but I wanted to touch on the Vino Nobile di Montepulciano. I think that some people have this bottle, the Carpinetto. Some people may have another one. Some people may not have it. It depends on whatever everyone ordered. And then we'll talk about the Vin Santo, ooh la la. But I just wanted to touch on like the differences, because really it's not a huge difference distance-wise between Montalcino and Montepulciano. And I'm just gonna share my screen one more time and go back to this and show you. Okay, so the Vino Nobile di Montepulciano. Everyone always gets these two towns confused. They are quite similar. Montepulciano as a town is actually quite a bit bigger. It's still tiny, but it's bigger than Montalcino. It's probably 4 to 5 times bigger. And it is to the east along that Val d'Orcia. And the Val d'Orcia is in itself a UNESCO World Heritage Site for the really open rolling hills, those cypress trees. Every estate that you find there claims to be the estate where they shot that scene in The Gladiator where he's in the dream and he goes home and they've got the cypress trees. Every estate in 4 square miles claims to be that place. But Montepulciano, so it was really well known in the Roman times for its winemaking already. And they have very beautiful ancient cellars in the town where you can go explore the Etruscan underground caves and places where they used to store their wines. But it has a slightly higher elevation. You're getting to the feet of the Apennines in this area. And so you get a little bit higher. You have less of a sea breeze influence. And what this means for the wine overall, so when you have a warmer climate and you have more sunshine and you have less rain and overall higher temperatures throughout the year, that means that you get more sugar in the wine, in the grape. You get a really rich kind of fat grape. And that means that you get a full-bodied, high alcohol level wine. So this is why a lot of people really love, I don't know how to look at somebody's chatting me. A lot of people love the Brunello for this reason. It has this really full body. It's really tannic. It can age a long time because of the climate and all the sunshine and kind of the heat in that area. Vino Nobile di Montepulciano is not totally different than that, but it does produce a little bit higher acidity because of the lower temperatures, slightly lower, and higher altitude. So you get diurnal temperatures. So this means that it gets cooler at night and warmer during the day. And that all goes into the balance of the wine. So when it's cool at night, you're adding acidity and this kind of structure. And then the heat during the day brings in the sugar level and you pull in flavors from the skins. So that creates that good balance, and you're getting a slightly cooler temperatures here. So you have a little bit more acidity and it makes the wine a little bit leaner over time. So you get more of a medium body rather than full. Your tannin levels that come from those warmed up skins aren't quite as high. Tannins are also go into how long a wine can age. So overall, this does have still the star grape is Sangiovese. However, it has a minimum percentage of 70%. The Carpineto, if you have it, this is actually 90% Sangiovese. So when you hear a wine's minimum requirement is 80% or 70%, winemakers can go above that, but they have to do at least 70%. It can be also 100%. They've chosen to do a 90%, and then 10% is mixed with Canaiolo Nero, which is a native grape to the area. It was actually the primary grape used in Tuscany before the 15 to 1800s, when they started realizing that Sangiovese actually produced this like amazing product in this specific area. So because we have slightly lower alcohol, slightly higher tannin, we have lower aging requirements because it doesn't have as much that needs to be in the oak for quite as long. So the Carpinetto that we have is actually a Riserva, so it's been aged for a minimum of 3 years. The Brunello has a minimum aging of 4 years, 5 years for a Riserva. The Montepulciano has a minimum aging of 2 years, 3 years for a Riserva. Both of these wines that we've talked about have little brothers. So there's a Rosso di Montalcino and a Rosso di Montepulciano. And what that does is just allow the winemakers to say, you know what, maybe this year we don't think we're going to have what would be a blockbuster Brunello coming out in the market in 5 years. So I'm going to make a really good wine still really expensive to make. A lot of care went into making it. We're still aging it for all this time, but we're going to release it earlier because we think it just is ready to drink earlier. So those are the little brothers. Those are the Rosso di Montepulciano and Rosso di Montalcino. And those are kind of more everyday. You don't have to have necessarily, you know, the salami and aged meats. You can eat them with lighter pastas and things like that. So I'm going to move straight on to Vinsanto. And this is a super interesting wine. It's not all over Italy that this comes from. It's quite a Tuscan specialty, I would say. But Vinsanto means holy wine. And it's called that because it's usually not pressed until Holy Week. So in the springtime following a fall harvest. But what Vinsanto is a sweet dessert wine. I don't know how to view my chats as this is happening. And now I don't know what I've done. So, okay. So I'm just gonna do it this way. So Vinsanto is made from 2 native grapes, 2 Tuscany. I'm gonna go back and show you this. And these wines are called Malvasia and Trebbiano. Sorry guys, technical difficulties, 1 second. Yeah, oh, here we go. Oh, play from current slide. Here we go. All right. So Trebbiano and Malvasia are white grapes. And the Trebbiano is actually the same grape as the white French grape Ugni Blanc. And Malvasia is another white grape. So Trebbiano provides a lot of acidity, and Malvasia provides a lot of perfume and other flavors to the wine. But it's a sweet dessert wine. It's not meant to be had alone or with a meal. It's truly just to be kind of savored and have just a little sip. Not a shot, everybody, just a sip at the end of a meal. And it's made in a really unique style. It's called appassimento. So they take these really ripe grapes that are already full of sugar, and they hang them on racks or put them in some sort of attic where they have a lot of good wind coming through. And what that does is it dries out the grapes, drives the water out of the grapes, so it's left with concentrated sugar. So they get really small and full of sugar. And then they put them in these 50-liter barrels called carrelli. And they let the wines actually ferment in there. So you have, you know, the introduction of natural yeasts in that area in kind of a musty attic with just some breeze coming through. That turns the sugar into alcohol. And then from that, you have these lees, these particles of the dead yeast that go into the bottom of the barrel. And they let them ferment and age in these carrelli for several months. And then they will take it out and press the juice off of the must and get rid of the must. And then they will keep aging the wines in these carrelli for several years. Some of the best are aged for 6, 8, 10 years. And they're traditionally served with cantucci, which are the small little cookies, and you dunk them in and things. But this wine, like this particular bottle, is from a winery where I used to give wine tours. It's called Selva Piana, and it's in Chianti Rufina, which is a little tiny zone to the east of Florence, north and east of Florence. And like a bottle like this is one of the better Vinsantos that you can get. when they fill the Corelli, they fill them only 4/5 of the way full. So that introduces air and oxygen, which brings out, in this case, it's good for the wine. It brings out like nutty honey flavors. I can't handle it. I love it so much. This particular bottle was like 50 euro at a little shop in Tuscany, and it was aged for, I don't know specifically for this one. It says 2010, but I think this one was aged for 8 years before it was released. And you can actually keep this, save it. You don't have to keep it in the fridge. It smells like the barrel. It smells like honey. It smells like nuts. But what they do is each time that they're making this wine, they leave a little bit of the yeast and those dead yeast cells, the lees and the must at the bottom of the barrel. It's called the madre, the mother. Sourdough. Yeah, it's like a sourdough starter, like everybody in the world knows right now. And they'll leave that in a little bit. And when they make new Vin Santo, they'll use that mother, the madre, and they'll pour the new wine on that, so it adds complexity and flavors to that. So I'm gonna save this for after my dinner. So good. But okay, so that's it. That's all. Cheers. I'm gonna unmute everybody, and I'm gonna stop recording now. So thanks everyone. Bye.
You're really sure you want to unmute us?
Not you guys. Oh, hang on, I messed up.
Oh, like she got smarter since last time and muted us.
Hilarious.
I figured out how to take away the option to let you unmute yourself. So anyway, does anyone have any questions, first of all, before?
This second one is really musty smelling.
Should we have let it decant? Because we literally just popped the cork and started drinking it. I mean,
Yeah, I would let it open a little bit. It is a reserva, so it still needs a little bit of time to breathe. And I think over the next 30 minutes to an hour, it'll still change quite a bit.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
It tastes good. It just smells musty.
You know, well, the other thing is that, so, you know, you see people pull the cork out and they smell the bottom. When people in a restaurant ask you, you know, they pour you wine, they open it, pour it to you and say, is this okay? And you're tasting it, you don't even really need to do that. That's why people smell this. If it smells like musty, wet cardboard, you've got a problem. Most of the time it won't. But if this smells like rank cardboard that's been sitting outside in the rain for like 10 days, it's probably been tapped, and it's not good. And that's usually how you can tell it. So if your cork, Emily and Brock, is okay, it's usually, even the wine, it can smell musty, but sometimes that's totally normal and it just needs to open a little bit.
The cork's fine, and it tastes good. It just smells different from the other one.
Yeah, they are two totally different. Isn't that funny? I mean, even they're only, as the crow flies, about 30 miles from one another, and they're totally different.
The Brunello is fabulous.
I agree.
It's a good day drinking wine.
Sheila, happy birthday. You're on mute, but I see Sheila up there in Tuscany. Happy birthday, Sheila.
Where's Sheila? Where's Sheila? Where's Sheila?
Sheila is, they've got a green screen thing going on with Tuscany, so. Then they've got themselves muted. But yeah, so today, and hi Dee, I'm glad you joined today. So we've got California, Tamara, I see you in Virginia, Jane in Indiana, Kansas, Missouri. We've got Georgia. People from all over. So this is so fun.
Happy anniversary to Lisa and Rob. Robbie, stick your head in. Happy anniversary.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Did anyone make a special pasta or ragu or anything for tonight?
No, but I bought some special steaks.
That'll work. That'll do the trick. We did. I made the white ragu that I posted on the webpage. By the way, so other tastings and recipes and things like that, I updated that Slice of Tuscany webpage today. So I think I'm going to bump up the Sicilian wine tasting to next week, since I know I've got Paolo on the hook for that. We'll do it sooner rather than later. And then I've got a Sardinian wine producer who wants to do something in the next few weeks, and I'm still working on a few others. So
Do you have the date?
I have the date of Paolo is the 9th, and then the other one I think is the 19th. We're going to do that on a Tuesday. The Sardinian winemaker doesn't speak English, but he's so great and so excited, and we're going to work on kind of an interview / translation thing and see if we can make that work or not. But he sent me a video on WhatsApp just this morning, and I put it on the webpage because it's too cool. It's just him on the tractor tilling up the ground between the vines, and he's showing me how all the seagulls, because he's in the northeast corner of Sicily or Sardinia, which is the most beautiful place in the entire world.
The beaches and water, yeah.
Yeah. It's a dream. So he's up near the seaside. I can't wait to show you guys some pictures of that area and their winery and talk about them. The wines today, the Argiano and the 2015.
We drink first.
So if you would like to buy more of those, couple things. So you can always look locally. They do export quite a bit, so you might be able to find them near you. But what I'm doing is working with a wine shop in Florence. And if anyone would like to order the 15 or other years from them, I can help you put together packages of their wines plus other wines that we do in our tastings, like Casaloste. You could get like 6 and 6 bottles from the different producers. Also order olive oil or traditional balsamic vinegars, lots of different things. So if you would like to order from them, I would say just email me. On Monday, I should have their pricing for us on the webpage. So I'm hoping tomorrow, but I'll say by Monday it should be up there. So you should have the pricing, and then you can just email me for ordering more from them, and I can help you with that. I feel like I was going to say something else, but the dogs are ready to play. They were really good the whole video though, and now they're gonna freak out. Everyone's on mute. That's not fair. I'm just here by myself now, pulling my weight for the group. Matt, what did you think of the wine?
I mostly drank the Brunello.
Yeah, you did.
I haven't switched to the Vino Nobile yet.
So the other thing, I'll just keep talking technically since nobody's saying anything. Thanks, guys.
You got a question.
We got a question. You need. Oh, I did unmute you. Yeah, you're all unmuted, so now you can select to unmute.
Now we're unmuted. All of a sudden, we got where everybody was muted, and I tried to unmute, and it said the host has you muted.
Oh, well, I'm glad it had me do that. I thought I unmuted you. That's my fault.
Active muting.
You did.
I learned my lesson last time.
You just need to learn how to mute LL and Lisa and M and them out there in Kansas City, and then let everybody else talk.
Yeah.
So we have the Reserva, and then we also have the 15 from the same winery. So we have a Reserva and a 15. So we were tasting both of those. But can you describe what you're tasting in the Reserva?
Sure. No, it's to both of us. Well, my first question is, this is that one for sure. First thing is actually a red berry and strawberry right off the bat, which is kind of surprising.
What is your issue?
I'm also getting plum, but strawberry was the first thing.
What's it, plum?
And this is just smelling. Actually, I haven't tasted it yet. So red fruit, plum. I can definitely smell like the cedar, the oak. It smells like a coat room.
Oh, that's tangy.
Who's this one?
So Brunello has a lot of tannins. So that's one of the first. That to me, like when you have that prickly, like overall, the tannin says that this wine could be aged quite a bit more before you start smelling and tasting actual fruit.
Look at Jack.
I would say mostly like red berries, like forest berries, and then definitely a little like floral flavor and a little something from the oak as well. What are you tasting, Brad?
They got muted again.
No.
He did it to himself. I didn't do it.
No, I think you have us on a setting that.
Oh, I have.
No, but if we go ahead and mute ourselves, I think we're gonna run into the same issue when we try to unmute it again.
Nobody's been touched.
Nobody's been touched. It's all unmuted.
I think. Oh, there
There you go.
I have.
We're unmuted. There. Can you hear us now?
She said.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Sorry.
I don't know. Our computer was acting up. That's the problem. I mean, I did not smell a lot of fruit. Ours was, I felt like more like maybe the oak or the, like a cedar or kind of a herb tasting or smelling of it initially.
Yes.
Not quite as much as the Brunello. I felt like the Brunello was much more earthy tones than the Reserva.
I think the overpowering thing from Reserva Montepulciano that I have is the tannin. So to me, it has just that like kind of chewy, scratchy, and that's the first thing. That's the overall overwhelming first impression. So that to me just says that it's young to drink still necessarily. So that's a good bottle that you can keep around and maybe open a little bit later. Also, the more you maybe keep it open for an hour or two, it'll start to open up a little bit more. It'll be better with food. Tannin and acid like that likes food more. So you'd start to pull things out if you're eating with it. But yeah, it's very tannic. Hi, Tamara.
Hi.
Good. Do you have the Montepulciano too?
I do. I didn't open it. We were drinking
yes. The Salcetto, I think.
Yes.
Do you like it?
It's good. I have not opened this one yet. So.
Mitch and Marianne, you guys are on bottle number 2 of Brunello right now, if I'm tracking.
Okay, Sally Roberts, we're enjoying your fresh olive oil you just sent us with a dipping sauce, and I made Italian bread today.
Happy Mother's Day, Mom.
Thank you. So good.
I sent my mom a 3-liter tin of fresh olive oil. So olive oil, quick lesson. You want it fresh, so anytime you can get it from the previous October. So that one is from October of 19. Wasn't a great year for olive oil in Italy, but some people made some really good ones still. So olive oil, this olive oil is neon green. You could eat it by itself. It's prickly and complex, and you use it only as a condiment. It was a $99 tin, 3-liter, but it goes a long way. It goes really far, and it's definitely.
And I'm worth it, right?
You are worth it, Mom, for sure.
And white, it is so good.
It's so good. I think I emailed people that info. Actually, it's Villa Capelli is where I got that, and most of you have that in an email. But olive oil, so you want to keep it in either a metal tin or a dark container. Keep it away from the stove. If it gets too warm, it'll cook and rot. You don't want that. What was your question? Jane, hi. We want to see you. You have a whole group, but you guys we can't see your face. She said, Dave is asking, tell us to look at the vineyard. It's beautiful. How does it look? And yes, we are all loving this. It's beautiful. Did you not see the pictures?
She's in the background.
I don't mean so.
I don't know what to say.
I have a question, Sally. When you have to
I'll send you the pictures later. Happy to do that.
Sally.
Yeah.
All right, I have a question. Unless someone else has one. All right, so on the Brunello, I've never drank a lot of Brunellos. I really like it. So I guess my question is did you choose this winemaker based off of it being your favorite Brunello, or did you choose it based off a price point, or why did you choose like this one out of the various Brunellos that are out there?
Yeah.
We really like it, by the way.
Yeah, I do too. Honestly, I've
drinking one, or if you have a favorite Brunello better. I mean, you know what I'm getting at. I'm just trying to understand like why you chose this one. Is it price? Is it?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, truthfully, I chose this one because I wanted to do the wine study and I wanted to get people Brunello as soon as possible to do this week. And in order to do that, this is one of the ones that was actually most accessible and that I could ship to the most people. And it's a good winery. It has a long tradition. I know their name. I have talked to people from Argiano before. It's not a place, if I had to, tell you on a list, truthfully, of places that I go to, unmute you, that I go to regularly, it's not necessarily those places. It's a little bit larger. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. I'd be happy to stay there. I'd be happy to have any of you all stay there. It'd be a lovely experience. There are places that are more family run, a little bit smaller, that I know better and that I probably drink more often. But this is a fantastic one. It's not, I will keep more of them around.
Gotcha.
So Sally, we're on to a Barolo. We started with the Brunello 2010. Mastro Gianni.
That we brought back from Italy.
Yeah, that from your
Where's
tour.
the baby? Where's the baby?
Nice.
Watching himself or herself.
Yeah. Brunello's my favorite though, and then Barolo's a close second. But those are.
What year is your Barolo?
2015.
Is it super dry?
That didn't come from Italy though, did it?
No. I just got this at
That we just picked up. That one didn't come from Italy.
From your Italy trip.
Right. Well, yeah, obviously it came from Italy, not while we were in Italy.
You're skipping ahead. So I took my mother to Barolo with me in September, October last year. And actually, this is worth mentioning. So in 2021, next September, what I'd really like to do, and I have it on the website, is to do a week in Tuscany where I take up to, thinking 8 to 10 people max. Laura Lee, number 1. And we do a week at a villa, like very close to Argiano, that area, for a week, where we have Rosanna, the chef. We do cooking classes at the villa, wine tastings. We have a driver, and we just do a lot of, do the Pecorino cheese farm. Do a very nice gastronomic week in that area. And then I'm gonna do a week break in between, and then I'd like to go up to Barolo for a week and do the same thing there. So get a cast.
Is that truffle season yet up there?
Actually, I have video.
We need to go during truffle season.
So I found truffles with a farmer and his dog.
I want to go.
September, October. They were small. It was the beginning of truffle season. November is really truffle season. So that's really the heart of it. But I will tell you, my mom and I found truffles with Luna, the dog. It was amazing. 2 days later, we see this helicopter flying around. Or no, it was the next day, right, Mom? Helicopters flying around, and they're like, who's the soccer player? Ronaldo.
The Portuguese guy, Ronaldo?
Yeah. They're like, he flew in on his helicopter from Milan with like 5 friends and went truffle hunting with our guy and our dog the next day. I was like,
my dog.
My dog. I should have been there.
I'm not sure why the helicopters weren't flying over looking at you and me, Sal. But they weren't.
It was great. So we found these little truffles. They were really small. It was the beginning of the season, but it was amazing to see this happen. And the dog just picked up on it, and we took the truffles, and then we made fresh pasta with this nice older lady, and then we used the truffles on our pasta. It was awesome. So we did some great white.
Show them. Emily, or Sally, look at this.
What is it?
Doug just made focaccia.
Yay!
Wow.
Wow.
We'll be there in just a few minutes.
So if anyone wants to go back with me next fall, that's the plan.
Is that the same villa that we're staying in June?
No, but it's not far. So where you're staying is actually very close to the Pecorino Cheese Farm.
She's in too.
It's between
2
these two towns.
Wait.
Right here.
Karen's coming too.
Yeah.
3 spots full for September.
That's all right. It's shut down. That's all we need.
I'll be doing research for my new job with you. You'll be my boss.
Oh, God help me.
We'll go if somebody wants to watch our kids.
What else?
Holly, I'm interested. So since we went 5 years ago, how much has not your business as far as clients grown, but like your contacts and your excursions and, you know, the opportunities that people have to do different things? Would you say that you've really branched out significantly since then?
Yeah, what I've tried to do is, I mean, I was always really concentrated around Rome and Florence, and I had some good contacts in, like, you know, Venice and Positano and places like that. But what I've been trying to do is get to, and obviously we lived in Puglia for a year, but I'm trying to get to more places like Piedmont and up around the lakes, and really trying to focus in and expand. I mean, my overall goal with all of this is that, you know, I want to be kind of like a one-stop shop eventually, like the go-to for not only tours and experiences and custom trips, but also like finding some of these products that, you know, you can't find in the States. So talking about eventually maybe looking into importing some artisanal products, some handmade, that look great, Mish. Some handmade bags and linens and things like that. So on each of these trips, not only looking at expanding different offers for trips, but looking into some products and things as well. So that's kind of the goal.
And what happens when you're posting that that's it, like for the rest of the year, I can't take any more tours? Like, how are you going to get bigger and just dominate the world?
One glass at a time. My goal is, like, I really like my life and my pace. I may hire like 1 or 2 people, but I don't care to go beyond that. I think that the level of service that I provide speaks for itself, and I like to limit the number of people that I take on to provide the best service to you. But also, I just also like to, you know, work out in the mornings and you know, like, I don't care to take on too much. Just I'm honest.
So you and Matt are basically the same person. Like, your level of drive is exactly the same.
Yeah, is that a compliment? I don't know. I mean, he flies jets, so he can, you know, he's like got it really focused, dialed in there. But
I was joking. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, he's way more focused. No,
I hope so.
Matt's goal is that he retires, you know, from these jets in the Marine Corps in a few years, and then I'm his sugar mama. So I'm like, well, you better help with Flights to Tuscany. And maybe we're over there a few months out of the year leading some of these things together. And there are these seaplanes that fly over Como that I think would be really cool.
There's a famous seaplane school.
There's a seaplane school up there that I think he should go check out next time we're in the area and see what that deal is.
Me too.
So I don't know. This is gonna maybe become like a slice empire. Yeah.
Cool. Well, if you need someone to do your international taxes, you got it in.
For sure. For sure, Mish. I'll keep you stock full of Barolo if you help me with those international taxes.
Absolutely.
Oh. What else? So pretty much every year. So Tamara lives in Virginia, and we actually met in Florence, and then through various people in Florence.
Years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago, 2012 or 13 or something.
Longer than that, so.
Oh my gosh. Is this really my day? The camera can see it.
Oh, well, I was going to talk more about Sardinia. I mean, we'll talk about that when we do that tasting, but it is somewhere too that this winemaker who I'm talking to about doing the tasting in a few weeks, he's like, you got to bring people here. You can come for a week and do the gastronomic week in Sardinia. And I was like, yeah, we can do that. No problem. It's, I think, the most beautiful place I've ever been in the world is Sardinia.
Sally, was Sardinia on our trip this last time? Well, the trip.
So we were talking about having you go to Sicily with Paolo.
Oh, that's right.
Can you add Sardinia too, please?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll just take the year off.
I'll go with you. Be your guide for the year. But yes, the Northeast Sardinia. Sardinia is like its own little island. They have their own dialect. The first time I went to Sardinia, I moved to Italy in August 2010. My roommates that week were like, we're going to our friend's place in Sardinia for 2 weeks for summer vacation. Do you want to come with us? And I was like, yeah. So I put a backpack on and I got on a little motor scooter thingy. And we went and got on a ferry, an overnight ferry. We arrived in Sardinia. I don't speak Italian. It was rusty. We get to Sardinia. We take an hour scooter ride then to this guy's house. It's 8 in the morning. Hadn't slept. He's in his kitchen and he takes a knife out of his back pocket and he's like, want some breakfast? And he gets this prosciutto leg out of the fridge and starts slicing it off. And the whole week was like that. And then at his wedding, and my other friend's wedding in 2018 in Tuscany, his family brought over coolers and coolers full of meat from Sardinia. And we did this open grill for the rehearsal dinner, and it was like 50 people, and they were in the corner of a room on a big table using hedge clippers. They'd fully roasted these animals, like multiple animals, lamb, pig, whatever. And then they have hedge clippers to crush through the bones and like rip meat. And then they just take meat and go plop it on the different tables. And I remember picking up a piece of meat and being like, this is amazing. And I pick up a piece of meat and I'm eating it off the bone like everyone else. I bite into it and I'm like, that's hard. And I look down and it's a tooth that I'm biting into. Like Sardinia is this natural, wild, lost in time place with like these rugged mountains, the most beautiful clear blue waters you've ever seen.
Clearest water.
Clearest water ever. I mean, you jump in. I remember being underwater and looking over. I remember seeing Nancy swimming, and I was like, oh, she's right there. She was like 50 feet away, and I thought I could like reach out and touch her. It was so weird. It's so pretty. Anyway, I'm talking a lot.
You're so pretty. You are very pretty. Very pretty.
Mute her. Go ahead. Thank you, Laura Lee. Oh my gosh.
Our focaccia bread is amazing.
Good. Who did
We have
that?
really-
Doug. Good job, Doug.
Thanks.
Really good olive oil makes anything taste good, so that's the key.
That's true. It really does. Did I mute everyone again? What is happening?
I think the problem, Sally, is if they mute themselves afterwards, then you have to allow them to unmute.
I think that's right, because we were trying to mute ourselves just so y'all wouldn't hear our discussions. And
Okay.
that's what they were doing.
Now you're good.
I fixed it then.
Dissidents can unmute themselves.
Welcome back, Emily.
Yeah, we've got it figured out.
You're the all-powerful Oz, Sally.
Just how I like it.
Doug, if y'all are going to Italy for a year, apparently I should have been an orthopedic surgeon instead of a neonatologist.
Say that again. I missed it.
I said, apparently, if y'all are going, you can take off a whole year and go to Italy. I should have been an orthopedic surgeon instead of a neonatologist.
Yeah, my partners aren't very happy about it, but that's okay. They'll get over it.
We have a happy early birthday toast for Dr. B. His birthday's tomorrow.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
What wine are you drinking tomorrow?
A lot. I don't know which one yet.
We're going to go out on the boat tomorrow, and who knows what we'll take with us.
Oh, fun. Well, I'm sad we can't be with y'all, but we'll be with you in spirit. We'll have to FaceTime.
That's right.
Oh, fun. This is the same crew that stayed and partied the other night.
Yeah, Kansas City is quiet today, though.
You know, the Kentucky Derby's starting in 10 minutes, so we've got our game faces on right now.
Hey, do you have your mint juleps made? Your simple.
No, but I have my Brunello.
I talked last time about going. Have you ever been to the Kentucky Derby?
What's that?
Have y'all ever been to the Kentucky Derby?
Yeah. Twice. It's the best. Highly recommend it.
I'm going there right now today.
Oh, wow. Well, Brock and Emily and I went several years ago. Red and I have gone, what, five times? We went 5 times. We haven't been in the last, 3 or 4 years. But we went, 5 years
2 years was last year 19, and then 3 years ago 17. It rained the whole time, but yeah, it was still fun.
Yep.
I'm looking to go when it's sunny.
I mean, when you're drinking all day, how can it not be fun, right?
Exactly.
You and 100,000 of your closest friends. It's the best.
That's right.
Are they just doing horses this year? Are there any people?
It's a virtual race of the 13 Triple Crown winners.
Right.
Oh, cool.
They're doing the race in September, though, I think. First Saturday in September.
That's correct. Hey, Doug, I put all my money on Secretariat for the Derby today. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, in our pool, you couldn't pick Secretariat. So we've got 2 horses. We've got Citation and Omaha. Karen's from Omaha, so we had to pick Omaha.
And Sally, just so you know, it is still recording.
Oh, God.
I'm really trying to stop it. I think you should just keep the recordings going just for